ATP, ATP, ATP.
You ain't addicted to progress?
What's up, y'all? It's Dalton, and welcome to episode 2 of ATP's Monday Mixing Tutorials. Today's tutorial is going to be a step up difficulty-wise from the previous ones, and we're going to be showing you how to make a decent-sounding rough draft. The song that I'm going to be using as an example today already has been fully mixed and mastered and put out. It's titled Taken Off by Mason Margiela off of his recent EP, Growing Pains. Link to the EP in the description. This is how the song sounds with no effects on whatsoever.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like Chris Paul, double the wood, get so high like Houston, taking off, bitch take it off.
As you can hear, that's a solid vocal take. My room is pretty well treated and we record on a Rode NT2, so the vocals are always pretty quality from the start, but in order to take it to that next level and make it sound professional, it needs to be mixed, and that all starts with the rough draft, so let's get right into it. Every mix I do, I start off with an EQ. For this tutorial, I'm going to be using the Logic Pro channel EQ. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do my thing and EQ the vocal, and then once I am done, I'll explain what I did and I'll show you before and after.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like Chris Paul, double the wood, get so high like Houston, taking off, bitch take it off. We don't fuck with the face shift, that's what you want, then I'm gone, smoking on strong, turning on snakes with a blunt to the face, so I'm mowing the lawn, give a lot y'all, fuck it till dawn, when I kick her out, that bitch feeling lost, comes with a cost, bad little John, that ass stick, but game what she on, what I'm off, yeah, I just pro the wood, have you cough, getting dropped off, yeah, snaking that whole lot, I'm Randy Moss, fuck with a boss, can't take a loss, get on my face, bitch, you don't belong, leave your ass out, lined in chalk, you just a pussy, real ones don't talk, ayy, and don't get that shit fucked up, little bitch, you know I ballin' out like I'm John Wall, ayy, yeah, and we rollin' up big blunts, please don't front, yeah, you know we run it up, don't fuck with stuff, yeah, I can't trust, yeah, ayy, they getting kicked like a pun, they do too much, ayy. I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like Chris Paul, double the wood, get so high like Houston, taking off, bitch take it off. We don't fuck with the face shift, that's what you want, then I'm gone, smoking on strong, turning on snakes with a blunt to the face, so I'm mowing the lawn, give a lot y'all, fuck it till dawn, when I kick her out that.
Alright, so that's all I'm going to do for the first EQ. As you can see, the most noticeable cut I made is the low end cut. With the low end cut, the goal of that is to take all the mud out of the vocal. So what I always do is I always use it as a wall. As you can see right here, this is where the vocal actually cuts off. So what I always do is I always push this as close as I can to that vocal. That way it's cutting off all the mud, but it's not actually touching the vocal. Secondly, for these two cuts, if you noticed what I was doing is I was going all the way up like this. The reason that I was doing so is that way you can hear the frequency standing out and you know exactly what you're cutting off. So I'm going to play it all the way up just to give you an example. What you'll hear is it's really making that frequency stand out and you'll hear how ringy it sounds, and that's why I dropped it down -1, because there is a good chance that unless it's turned up all the way like this, you won't even hear the difference. But either way, it is taking that frequency out. So this is that frequency with it boosted all the way.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like Chris.
You can hear it's got that real echoey, boxy, ringy sound to it. So that's why I drop it down to -1. And it's the same concept with this cut. And the way that the waves are set up for the vocal right now is actually perfect to explain how I pick where I'm going to do that. So if you notice the frequency wave, you can see that this is peaking. You can see that the peak of this is above 0. So when I let the vocal play, wherever those waves are jumping above 0, that's where I try to focus on finding a bad frequency to cut out. So for the first EQ, these are the only 3 cuts I'm going to make. So here is a before.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like.
And here's an after.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like Chris Paul, double the wood, get so high like Houston, taking off, bitch take it off.
Okay, so you might not have heard a difference whatsoever. If you're new to mixing, don't feel shamed whatsoever. It's definitely a skill you acquire over time and over practice, but this is a good first EQ to smooth out that vocal a little bit. The second plugin that I'm going to be using is an R EQ, and this is out of the Waves Platinum bundle. I know that a lot of you may not have that bundle, but that doesn't mean that you can't use the Logic Pro ones to do the same exact thing. The knobs and the controls might look a little different, but the idea is always the same. So with this EQ, what I'm going to do is I'm going to boost those high ends. Once again, I'm just going to do my thing and show you after.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like Chris Paul, up in the wood, get so high like Houston, taking off, bitch take it off, we don't fuck with the face shift, that's what you want, then I'm gone, smoking on strong, certain on snakes with a blunt to the face, so I'm mowing the lawn, give a lot y'all, fuck it till dawn, when I kick her out, that bitch feeling lost, comes with a cost, bad little John, that
Okay, this EQ boost will be a little easier to hear. What I did is I just boosted those high ends. If you come back to that first EQ and you notice as the vocal plays,
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like Chris Paul, up in the
so that's why I use this EQ, because I think it just sounds a little better than the normal channel EQ, and it gives the vocal a more full sound, and it brings it up in front of the beat a little more so that it's not getting overtaken by that beat as much. This is a difference that you should be able to hear, so here is before.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like
And here's after.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like
A little easier to pick out, but very important to your mix so that your vocal doesn't sit in the shadows of that beat. The third plugin that I'm going to be putting on the vocal is my first compressor. For my first compressor, I'm going to be using the Arvox, so let me do my thing.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like Chris Paul, up in the wood, get so high like Houston, taking off, bitch take it off, we don't fuck with the face shift, that's what you want, then I'm gone, smoking on strong, certain on snakes with a blunt to the face, so I'm mowing the lawn, give a lot y'all, fuck it till dawn, when I kick her out, that bitch feeling lost, comes with a cost, bad little John, that ass stick, but game what she on, what I'm off, yeah, I just pro the wood, have you cough, getting dropped off, yeah, snaking that whole lot, I'm Randy Moss, fuck with a boss, can't take a loss, get on my face, bitch, you don't belong, leave your ass all lined in chalk, you just a pussy, real ones no talk, ayy, and don't get that shit fucked up, little bitch, you.
So I do want to let you know before we talk about compressing that compression is the hardest thing to hear. There's a very fine line between the perfect amount of compression and over compressing a vocal, and it's something that I still sometimes struggle with to this day. So never be scared to take advice from someone that knows a little more than you, because you should never be ashamed of making mistakes with a compressor. And once you've been locked in a room listening to the same song over and over again for an hour or two, sometimes that line between too much and just right gets blurred. So what I did is I raised that compressor to negative 10.5. That is what will bring all the levels from the vocal to an equal amount, and that's why it gets louder as it goes, because it must push it in order for it to squish it to the same level. And then that is why you cut off some of the gain. That way it's not too loud and it doesn't stick out in your mix too much. So I cut off negative 3 dBs, and then I set that gate to negative 50. So like I said, compression is kind of hard to hear, but here's a before.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like Chris Paul, up in the wood, get so high like Houston, taking off, bitch.
And here's after.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like Chris Paul, up in the wood, get so high like Houston, taking off, bitch take it off, we don't.
So if you noticed as I was listening, I dropped it down 0.5 more. It was still just a little bit too loud and sticking out too much, so I just wanted to take some of the volume off there, but that is a good first compressor. The fourth thing that I'm going to be putting on a vocal is a de-esser. I'm going to be using the Waves de-esser. Unfortunately, the Logic Pro de-esser is kind of tough to use, but with proper time put into it and watching some YouTube tutorials, you can definitely figure it out. But what I do with this de-esser is I usually always just come to the factory presets and select that male S, because that gets it about to where you're going to need it. You might have to mess with the frequencies a little bit. I remember with this song, I had to change it to about 4400, but a de-esser is super important. You could have the best mix in the world, and if there's not a de-esser on there, those S sounds are going to pierce through it, and it'll make your mix very unpleasant to listen to, so always make sure to put a de-esser on there. So I'm going to do my thing.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like Chris Paul, up in the wood, get so high like Houston, taking off, bitch take it off, we don't fuck with the face shift, that's what you want, then I'm gone, smoking on strong, certain on snakes with a blunt to the face, so I'm mowing the lawn, give a lot y'all, fuck it till dawn, when I kick her out, that bitch feeling lost, comes with a cost, bad little John, that ass.
Okay, so I just dropped that down negative 35. You can really hear it when he says teeth in Houston. You can notice that the S's aren't as present. So here is before.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like Chris Paul, up in the wood, get so high like Houston, taking off, bitch.
Okay, so now I'll play an after, and as the de-esser is on and going, you'll be able to see this red bar coming up and going down. So when you hear an S noise, you'll see that this bar grows, so pay attention to that.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like Chris Paul, up in the wood, get so high like Houston, taking off, bitch take it off, we don't.
As you can hear that Houston was a lot more smooth, and it helped the mix a ton. So the last thing that I do for a rough draft is I put one final compressor on there. I'm going to be using the Renaissance compressor for the last one, and the reason that I always put a second one on last And the reason that I always put a second one on last, so that it takes that somewhat mixed vocal and compresses it a little more to give it a smoother sound, and down the road it'll help your mix a ton. So I'm gonna do my thing.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like Chris Paul, double the wood, get so high like Houston, taking off, bitch take it off, we don't fuck with the face shift, that's what you want, then I'm gone, smoking on strong, certain on snakes with a blunt to the face, so I'm mowing the lawn, give a lot y'all, fuck it till dawn, when I kick her out, that bitch feeling lost, comes with a cost, bad little John, that ass stick, but game what she on, what I'm off, yeah, I just pro the wood, have you cough, getting dropped off, yeah, snaking that hole like I'm Randy Moss, fuck with a boss, can't take a loss, get on my face, bitch, you don't belong. Leave your ass all lined in chalk. You just a pussy, real ones don't talk. Ayy, and don't get that shit fucked up. Little bitch, you know I ball. Ballin' out like I'm John Wall. Ayy, yeah. And we rolling up big blunts. Please don't front. Yeah, you know we run it up. Don't fuck with stuff, yeah, I can't trust. Yeah.
So that sounds good. That really smoothed out the vocal and it helped it a ton. What I did is I raised that threshold to a -11, put that ratio to about 4, same with the attack, and then since I lowered the threshold of the compressor, it does make the vocal quieter. So then what I did is I added 3 dBs back in volume. So for a very basic rough draft, this is all I would do. This gets the vocal on its way to sounding professional and is the first step to a final mix and master. Next week, I will be going over adding special effects to that vocal through buses, such as reverb and delay. But for this week's tutorial, this is all I'm gonna mix. This is what the song sounds like before I touched it.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like Chris Paul, double the wood, get so high like Houston, taking off, bitch take it off.
And this is after.
I got that drip, my walk, diamonds in my teeth so wet, I spit when I talk, like Chris Paul, double the wood, get so high like Houston, taking off, bitch take it off, we don't fuck with.
So as you can hear, it's definitely got a lot of work to go. I will be fully mixing this song throughout our tutorials, so you will see all the steps that I took to get it to that final version, and you will learn how to eliminate all those bad qualities that you hear in your rough mix. But for today, that's it. I hope you guys learned a lot. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe for daily content, and I'll see y'all next week.